What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. The other day, we had a very interesting handheld that was revealed that does take on the form factor that I see a lot of people asking for again, and that's the dual screen setup. So we'll take a look at that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a slew of updates that Nintendo has now pushed live, some for the Switch and the Switch 2, and some others for Mario Kart World, the big launch game for the Switch 2, as it appears Nintendo has now responded to all the backlash that game was getting. So we'll take a look at those notes here today. And then we'll also be taking a look at the Xbox ROG Ally handhelds. It's a whole thing with the title there, but we have some more information around not only the pre-order timing for that, also more about the pricing, and this one, it's going to hit the wallet hard. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with PlayStation Plus for the month of August, as we have 3 games to look forward to here, which we can see over on PlayStation Blog. Now, these games will be live August 5th, starting with Lies of P, that's on the PS5 and PS4, DayZ, that's specifically the PS4 version, but naturally will work backwards compatible for the PS5. And then My Hero 1's Justice 2, again, PS4 working through backwards compatible for the PS5. And I guess this is a good time to remind everyone to go ahead and claim those July monthly games, as they will be cycling out as these come in. That includes Diablo 4, King of Fighters 15, and then Jasant. Now, looking at this, Lies of P is a good one. If you have not played it, this is a good time to check it out. They also had some new content that hit somewhat recently through like a big piece of DLC, but they also have done updates that seem to have split the community a bit with things like, I think, difficulty settings, and that's kind of a weird thing to approach in a game that's kind of being that Souls-like game. But if you were concerned about maybe difficulty or something, now would be a good time to try it, especially with going into PlayStation Plus. So keep an eye out for those games entering the service August 5th. Also, we had some strange news for Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. As you can see, .emu, who is sort of talking about its release coming up in the next day or so, well, they also touched on frame rate for the different versions of the game. And you can see they mentioned that the Switch version will average 30 FPS at launch. So I'm not sure if that's a capped 30 or if it's just uncapped and just sits around 30. They say the game will be playable on Switch 2 through backwards compatibility and will benefit from the console specs. Other platforms, just about all of them, will have a solid 60 FPS experience. I'm not sure why this game is struggling at like that 30 FPS mark on the Switch. I'm hoping that it's just uncapped, because if that's the case, as we see with all these Switch 1 games, it feels like that are then playable on the Switch 2. If it's uncapped frame rate, usually it will just hit 60 and sit there. So my hope is that is their approach here. It's unfortunate for all the Switch 1 owners out there, because I mean, it sounds disgusting. A 2D platformer, like the action platformer, an unstable, or like around 30. I don't know what that even means. So that's going to be an interesting one to see Digital Foundry approach there, but I don't know if it's something they can fix in the future. But for me at this time, it's like, guess I'm looking at the PS5 version. Oh, and one Switch 2 game that people have been telling me here and there to check out is Fantasy Life I. However, it's digital only, and I would like to see that game go physically and release on something that's also not a game key card, which feels like a big ask right now. Well, until you see this, I mean, this is posted by PlayAsia, with Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, receiving a full physical release on Switch 2. That's happening next week. Game card, no game key card, guys. This is the legit thing here. Multiple languages, and it's shipped worldwide. So even though it's coming out of, say, Japan, as they show, it should have an English version of it here on the cartridge. It working in the Switch 2, naturally, it's region free. So I went ahead and put an order in for this. I think my total price on it was, after shipping as well being included, was $64, $65. So not even like the full 70. So it's coming out August 7th, as they mentioned, or at least that's when its releases, and then you gotta wait for shipping to come in and everything. Maybe I'll do an unboxing for it, because that does seem kind of like one of those, I guess, rare kind of like different releases, and it could be fun just to see if they have any extras or anything with it. So I guess keep an eye out for that. Maybe I'll do it as a YouTube short. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this new handheld that was announced this week, and it's from AYANEO, who I'll admit, when I see AYANEO, I go, That's going to be a really cool handheld, but it's also going to be very, very expensive. So I like to see them do some sort of twist on the handheld scene, since it does appear that they all look very, very similar and do really cool stuff, because for a while it was like, wow, you can play these big experiences on the go. Now it's like a lot of these handhelds can do that. What else you got? Well, how about basically a DS, a new age DS system? And you can see some of the images here. And they shared this in a pretty lengthy live stream along with a bunch of other products. But this is a dual screen Android-based handheld, the AYANEO Pocket DS. I guess you could use DS because it's like, oh, that stands for dual screen. It's not necessarily like a trademark thing for the logo and stuff with Nintendo. So there you go, Pocket DS. Now, during the live stream, we did see, again, different products, but a lot of people were focused in on this. And when you look at it, okay, so the top screen is larger than the bottom screen. The top screen is a 7-inch OLED display, 1920 by 1080 resolution, up to 165 hertz on that refresh rate. So that would be your main display. The second screen is a 5-inch 1024 by 768 with a 4:3 aspect ratio. And naturally, looking at it, my first thought is, wow, this would probably do a good job emulating 3DS games or DS games. But if you think a bit beyond that, you can have, they mention, different apps running on each screen, and maybe you're playing, say, a new game that came out and you're running it there on the top screen, but then on the bottom screen, you're maybe watching a YouTube video, or you're reading through guides or something to help you along. There's a lot of cool things you can do there with both screens, and I like the clamshell design, as it works to then also protect the nice big 7-inch OLED display there. They are working with Qualcomm, and based on some other documents that were released, different slides, appears to be a Snapdragon G3X Gen 2, so a fairly capable device here, right, for using those two screens. We're still waiting for information on pricing or exact release date. They did say that they're looking to have it out before the end of 2026, so in the next year and a half, but they also mentioned that it's in mass production, I believe, so it sounds like to me it's probably out within the next 10 to 12 months, but it will be shown off at China Joy, and that's happening this weekend, August 1st to the 4th, so we should see some pretty good information coming out of that, hands-on time with it, people really getting a good look at this system being played with performance as well, but I'm sure just trying out both screens at the same time and just overall build quality of it, although these would probably still be kind of prototypes that they're taking with them and may not be representative of the final build, but I like the idea of seeing more of these dual screen displays. We've seen some come out, but this one to me feels like one that would be much more capable. They even mentioned like an 8,000 milliamp hour battery, and again, it's AYANEO, so I start to think $700-800, maybe more. So unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be a very affordable system, but I just like the idea of more and more of these companies working towards this idea so that we can see some maybe get a bit cheaper and a bit more approachable for most people. A dual screen setup there clearly plays in well for emulation, but also just the overall functionality is something that they will have over just single display systems. Next up, let's talk about a bunch of updates that Nintendo issued. This for the Switch 2, couple of NSO apps, one specifically being mentioned, and then Mario Kart World. So a lot happened over the last 24 hours or so, but let's start here. This is update 20.3.0 for the firmware, and the patch notes: general system stability improvements to enhance the user's experience. So basic stuff, nothing crazy. They're not really going into detail. However, people quickly noticed that there were some changes. One example, the Nintendo eShop now has a Switch 2 specific section showing all games, and it seems like updates just kind of thrown in there. So you basically pick a section on the eShop and it shows you stuff you can buy for your Switch 2. All right. So at least that's a way to kind of cycle out any of the Switch 1 games, because otherwise they were kind of just thrown in there and mixed up in, say, the recent releases or upcoming tab. So they just have more stuff, I guess, they can put in there now after, a month and a half or so, almost 2 months after release. So they're able to populate that a bit better. I guess they felt the need to drop that in. The Super Nintendo app, however, has been a major focus with things like CRT filters being updated for it, and it looks pretty good. The app has also been rebranded to Nintendo Classics, and I just feel like every time now one of these apps, which I think Game Boy and Game Boy Advance being two that need it, get a game, it'll probably have that update to where it's then also Nintendo Classics. Now, Super Nintendo button mapping has been added so you can customize and change up what each input does, and naturally mouse controls, as we mentioned with Mario Paint, but also for games like Nobunaga's Ambition and Super Mario Picross. So you can either use the Joy-Con 2 mouse there, or plug in a USB mouse with the Switch 1, and you should be off and running there. Now, as I mentioned on the other side, Mario Kart World got its update, and the patch notes are quite lengthy. So you can see the page here, and this is update 1.2.0. It was released July 29th. This was last night. And again, you can kind of go through here, and it looks pretty standard in versus race of single player. Added no comm to the comm rules. I do like one where they just say, made comm weaker in everything other than battle. On the free roam map, when you gather all of the P-switches or question panels and Peach medallions, the colors of the various numbers will now change. However, a lot of people focused in on increase the frequency of lap-type courses appearing in the selection when choosing the next course in versus race and wireless races, because previously there was an update that made it so what you end up with most of the time, almost every time, people were pointing out, were the races that were like knockout, where you just go from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, and you don't have your standard lap type courses, say 3 laps, like you would have in previous Mario Kart games, since a lot of people will work on those courses, really get them down almost to a science, and then be able to have those skills utilized and be able to finish first place, unless every item in the world decides to hit you at once when you're about 10 feet from the finish line. I think most people know what I'm getting at there, that frustration. But this is interesting because it does kind of feel like Nintendo read the room a bit here. I know it wasn't immediate. These updates do take more time than I think people expect. Unless there's something really wrong with the game to where it's not working and they try to push through an issue, a hot fix immediately, they naturally were waiting for this update to include it. And to me, this is just good. There have been discussions around Mario Kart World struggling or having issues finding matches. I mean, I have been playing Donkey Kong Bonanza quite a bit, and I've now wrapped up not only the main game, but everything else. You go afterwards and you do other things as well, and like post-game stuff, getting more bananas, and I haven't worked up to where I have all the bananas, but I think I've done enough, and I think I'm at 35 or so hours in the game to call it done, so I think that's pretty good. But because of that, that's most of what I've been playing on the Switch 2, along with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 here and there. So I haven't really checked in with Mario Kart World much, but after hearing everyone discussing it, I'll jump in and I'll try a couple of these knockout races and see how it goes. And I found full lobbies of human players every time, so at least for me, I wasn't necessarily experiencing this, but I know it's going to vary based on when you're playing, I guess region, and all these other things going into it. However, this is one of the major things that turned a lot of people off the game, was the idea that all that time you spend trying to master and perfect and figure out the best line and the best path around these 3-lap courses, that's kind of out the window, and you're just really not going to be playing those much anymore online. Yeah, it seemed to have a lot of people go, I think I'm good for now, all right? So maybe seeing this update, and we'll see as people naturally will jump on to test it, if it does result in more and more, or far more, of these 3-lap races showing up, then yeah, you might have more people just jumping back on and playing Mario Kart like they were hoping to in the first place. So at least there was a response from Nintendo. Yeah, it's unfortunate they did that in the first place because it had a massive amount of frustration and just even backlash towards it. But better they fix it now than just not at all and do the stubborn Nintendo thing, put their heads down and just push forward and say, hey, this is how we want you to play the game. In this case, yeah, they actually listened. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about those ROG Xbox Ally handhelds that will be at Gamescom, as we just discussed yesterday. But now we're starting to get a bit more information as to when pre-orders will go live, and also some more backing on the pricing, which it's going to hit hard for people who are looking to get this, specifically with their wallets, because these aren't going to be cheap. I think many of us figured that. First, though, let's take a look. This over on Dealabs, who, again, seem to get a lot of their information from the back end of different retailer websites and other avenues to where they can basically nail down exact timing for releases or pre-orders, and yes, even pricing. So we can see this over on their website, where they say, following our recent investigations, we were able to confirm the pricing of Xbox's upcoming portable consoles. Unsurprisingly, they match the previous leaks. 599 euros for the Xbox Ally, and 899 euros for the Xbox Ally X. Among other data we gathered, we were able to identify the launch date for pre-orders. Both models will go on sale from Wednesday, August 20th, 2025, which is the same day they'll be showcasing these at Gamescom, and it kind of makes sense. They'll be there talking about it on live stream, and they're like, hey, they're ready for pre-order right now, which I mean, that means we'll also get our pricing right then and there. So people are looking at this and lining it up with, say, conversion rates, and it, like the most expensive one comes out to right around $1,000, okay? That's about where I was placing it because it is quite a bit more powerful than the Steam Deck if you sort of align the specs and everything, but also it's not something I think that Microsoft is looking to subsidize, just outright. I mean, look what they did with their own Xbox Series consoles. It's still $600 for that Series X with a disk drive. I don't think they're going to look at this handheld and be like, yep, we absolutely have to eat some of that cost to bring the price down. I just don't think they care as much about that, and they're letting Asus kind of just set pricing and everything from there, and that's how we end up with a potentially $600 to $700 base system handheld, and then a near $1,000 Ally X. Yes, that's just kind of where we are with these handhelds at this point, and that's unfortunately something that's just become a pretty common trend now with these PC handhelds. They're just really expensive, and it's kind of off-putting for a lot of us. And you know what? That's the thing with the Steam Deck, and one of the reasons it's so easy to recommend it. It's, hey, you can get a Steam Deck, even an OLED model for, what, $500? They have the refurb models that are very good from Valve, by the way, that are in the $400 some odd dollar range. And if you don't want that, you can go down to the LCD model, and I've seen them at times get to $300 or less for that, for like the starter version. And at that point, that's a great value for a system that opens you up to all kinds of PC gaming on Steam with a bunch of steep discounts, and you can still do other things. Naturally, emulation has been talked about at length with it, but also being able to dual boot to Windows, and there's a lot of freedom and other things you can do there. So it's hard to be like, no, pass on the $400 Steam Deck, go for the $1,000 Ally X that's locked into Windows and stuff. So that's kind of where we are. Specifications, again, look very good, but I don't blame people for maybe sticking it out with their current Steam Deck or picking one up now and just hoping that at some point soon Valve starts really talking about the Steam Deck too, because that is something I think the market needs right now, is just a cost-effective or lower-cost handheld that still has good power to it and an entire ecosystem and OS tied together with that hardware. But I guess we'll see in August, a few weeks from now in Gamescom, where we are sitting with the pricing in the US, and I'm still thinking $900 to $1,000, which still sounds kind of crazy for a handheld. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, which of these August releases are you most excited about? Okay, Metal Gear Solid Delta, 52%, that would have been my vote as well. Oh wow, Mafia the Old Country there at 2, then Gears of War Reloaded, and then Lost Soul Aside. Man, Lost Soul Aside just kind of getting put to the side here. I mean, I was interested when it got delayed a few months, okay? Like, we should have already been playing this. I probably would have already beaten and moved on from the game at this point. So, I mean, I am looking forward to Lost Soul Aside, but hard not to look at Metal Gear Solid Delta and be like, all right, yeah, that's the one for August. I mean, it's based on a legendary game. Now, how will this work out with Virtuos? Well, they've been pretty good, so I think it'll be good in general from a quality standpoint. But, I mean, I know other people in the comments are naming a bunch of other titles. YouTube only gives me 4 options. Used to be 5, by the way, and if I had that 5th option, Shinobi would have been there. I saw some people in the comments asking about it, or, I mean, they give me 6 options, guys. We're going Drag X Drive with it, too. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Big Happy, who says, Spawnwave, you should have showed RGT85's masterpiece artwork that he made for you. Okay, so I saw this, and I don't think this is for me. He didn't tag me in it or anything. And it looks like it says Spawnwave, S-P-A-U-N Wave. So I'm not really sure who that is. I assume the person who was defeated by Labo could use the crayon or the marker here and scribble out a W, but that's not Sean's strong suit here with the W. So I assume that's just for someone else he met that's Spawnwave. But hey, Mario Paint, should check it out. It's a lot of fun. Maybe I'll make something with ROT85. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to check out the latest episode of the Spawncast that we had Saturday night, where we talked about all kinds of randomness and video games. I'll leave that in a card right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.